okay, long gold, short the dollar, long. You've always got to trade on. Right now, like what's the best trade? What's your trade?
So my trade right now is basically at these highs, and if we do pop tomorrow on the Fed, it'll be continuing to kind of short the S&P 500. So I covered a lot of my shorts today on this little retrace. I'm hopeful that we'll get one more pop, and then I'll start to basically short in. I'll be looking to short stocks like Apple. I think the valuation there is insane still, compared to previous periods before the Fed was printing money, and that's where we are now. A large cap with the growth of Apple was trading at like a 10 PE. It's still at a 25 PE. So I think there's a lot of downside in big names like that. So S&P, NASDAQ, Apple, those type of plays. And then once Bitcoin bottoms out, I think, in second quarter of 2023, I'll be looking to add some significant positions there.
Now, do me a favor. Can you look at the chart of BNB? Because I'm very interested to know what you see the future of the BNB chart. I've heard some really scary things.
All right.
I've heard some really scary things, and I want to just hear what your analysis is on BNB, and then I mean that's probably a good segue into one of the other big stories that's going on. And that's I don't know if you can call it a bank. You could probably say there's a slight bank run. There is an expedition of deposits out of Binance. I think they had one of their biggest withdrawal days. Talk to me about the chart first.
Chart is definitely a little bit on the weaker side, but I will say this: the low of the day was around 255 on Binance, and it's currently trading above that. And if you look at since September, that was the lowest point on the chart, meaning there's been multiple hits of that 255 area, and it's held. And as of now, it's held. So as long as 255 holds, to me, that's a line in the sand. If that breaks, then you're talking about 180 on Binance. So I think the key is right now it's holding, so you give it the benefit of the doubt. But if 255 starts to break and you go lower, then that would be where trouble really starts to get going.
All right, hit me with another one. Coinbase equity, so Coinbase shares. Talk to me about Coinbase shares.
So Coinbase, it had traded up nicely this morning on the market. It looked like it got as high as 46. Now it's trading at $40. So that's about a 15% drop from the highs. It's basically at all-time lows here. It does have a little bit of support down here, but it's been hammering here. And again, I would generally think that you'll get some bounces, but I think it's probably, if Bitcoin's going lower and the crypto markets are going lower in the near term, Coinbase is probably headed a little bit lower. I would honestly feel a little bit safer about investing in Coinbase right now or Bitcoin than alts. I think there's just so much uncertainty with the altcoin area. Maybe not Ethereum, but I think that again, anything that's SEC regulated. Coinbase is a stock, so you assume they have audits, stuff like that. It probably is a little bit, knock on wood, safer. But again, in this environment, it's hard to know.
Let me ask you one more while we're looking at it. Silvergate Bank, which is the token symbol is SI. And that's the bank that's caught into the middle of this FTX story. It's trading at lows, long time lows, so to speak. Very interested to know what your view is there.
Yeah, and so Silvergate Capital, is that the one?
Yeah, Silvergate. I think it's Silvergate. SI would be the stock symbol.
Multi-year lows. I'm seeing back in 2020 there was epic support at $16.60, and it's at $18.60 right now. So for me, I'd be starting to really, it looks like a really good buy around $16.60 if it gets there. It's only about $2 lower.
Wow, amazing. Cool. Gareth, before you go, Jordy, Simon, Bombay, I see Kyle Dupes is in the audience. Kyle, I'm going to send you a speaker invite so you can join us. If you guys have got any questions for Gareth, would love to hear them.
Maybe some commentary. I think when people look at the macro of interest rates and stuff, I'm a very long-term kind of guy without the trading side. And the cure to inflation is a recession. So if you want to control inflation, then that's the nature of debt-based money. And the way to do that is to put up interest rates send the people that are over leveraged bankrupt. And that's the nature of the business cycle. And a certain pain point where they say, yeah, we'll continue to remove all free markets from the United States. But eventually you get, I think you get that decoupling, because we've only ever experienced Bitcoin in, a money printing market since 2008, since QE became, was hyper accelerated. And so what happens next when they actually try and control inflation and allow a recession to persist, if they allow a recession to persist, it is really the true test of whether Bitcoin is what it was designed to be. And so long term, the fundamentals are meant to be that when the economy, or when the real world produces the ability for you to want to own your own money, i.e. self-custody, when the real world makes you have massive censorship in money, and therefore you want to remove the middle person from the censorship so you can leave it just to law enforcement. And then finally, when you need a fixed supply, i.e. hard money, those are all the long-term trends. And so do you get this exodus away to the fundamentals? And so those are kind of like the longer term trends to look out for. And then in the middle of that, you have all these trading. But it's interesting what we always see in these really depressive crypto markets. I think it's interesting that Bitcoin and Ethereum are up, and then everything else is, or most things are down apart from stables. And those are really, to me, like the good signs, when the things that appear to have real value, and then all the shit, everyone's exodus away from those and into like Bitcoin. That's always a good sign for me. So when we're analyzing BNB, we have to think about it. What is that in the future? Well, it's essentially a crypto security. So we've got to start thinking about all these things in terms of the stock market. And then we've got to start thinking about, will Bitcoin and ETH remain in the commodity market? And once that distinction becomes clear, it will be easier to compare BNB to Coin, Coinbase and the various other things.
I mean, speaking
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
BNB,
Before Gareth leaves, I had like a few questions for Gareth. Gareth, where do you see the whole commodity market going? Like right from gold, silver to natural gas and stuff. Like what do you see in the coming year with the macro environment that you described? Where do you see those things heading?
So with oil and natural gas, I'm on the camp that both are headed lower. I mean, it doesn't mean we're not going to bounce, but again, if we do get a recession like I think we're going to get, then the demand for energy will decline, right? So yes, China is reopening. They're kind of moving away from their COVID policy, but I don't think that their reopening is going to be as robust as everyone thinks, as they're already basically in a housing crisis and some other issues. So I would generally lean on the downside on natural gas, especially after this recent run it's had, and then oil. Oil could bounce back a little bit here, but again, I think it's sub $50 next year at some point. In terms of gold and silver, I think gold again is going to have one of its biggest years in a long, long time. The parallels of the chart from the 70s is like remarkably scary, and gold actually 10x'd in the late 70s. Now, I don't think it's going to 10x this time, because Bitcoin is going to take some of that away, right? So maybe it does a 3x or something like that, but I still think that's a significant move. If you're a gold investor, you're not used to that type of return for sure. So again, I'm a big fan of the metals, specifically the ones that are more stores of safety. I think silver will do fine as well. It's an industrial metal partially, so I think that takes a little bit away from it, but I think it'll do fine as a store of safety as well.
Holy shit! I'm looking at the Binance. Nansen Binance dashboard, which I'll tweet out in a second. I can see that today over $5 billion has been withdrawn from Binance. Over $5 billion, which represents about 8% of their assets that are tracked by these dashboards, have been withdrawn from Binance today. So I don't think it's been a very pleasant day on on the Binance front. And there's been a lot of FUD. I think I've pinned 2 Dylan Leclerc tweets. One of them, he says it's the largest outflow of Bitcoin from Binance ever. The other one is that he shows a screenshot which says, let people know to get their funds off Binance. Use my tweet if you want, or create your own. People need to know execs bailing institutional, and in brackets, jump, capital fleeing, and charges coming. Just a heads up that a bunch of Binance stories are going to hit the market this week. Reporters are hitting me up constantly. And then I think this is Dylan Leclerc saying, or somebody saying, really, can you give me more info? Can keep you anon if you'd like. And it says they've confirmed leadership losses, accounting contacts have serious issues with their POR. No reporter can confirm or identify the parent or ownership structure of Binance, and can't track down a meaningful list of executives beyond CZ. All items and stories are set to come out from outlets like CNBC, Bloomberg, and Truthout. And then I think it's Dylan Leclerc, but he says, can I post a screenshot of this? And it says, yes, and you don't have to keep an on. I'm fine with the heat. So I don't know who sent that to him. I don't know if anyone's got any further info on that, but it does seem like that we're at peak FUD on Binance at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's funny. I mean, this is like super funny primarily because first up, yeah, I don't know CZ. CZ doesn't know me. I have no vested interest here. But it's just so funny how people actually forget about what market makers do and what their job is. They never track. Like, it's so usual for Wintermute and Jump and all these market makers to throw money in, get money out, and they do it on a regular basis. Yes, the numbers may be slightly more right now, but it's what is so clownish is that these people, they forget about. I mean, half the people don't even know what a market maker is, how they work, and they just start digging all this data out, and they're like, "Oh, Jump Capital is taking the money out. What do we do?" It's like you go back and see how many times Jump Capital is taking their money out and back in, and you'll see that it's not that big of a deal. Unless I'm wrong here, feel free to correct me.
Yeah, I'm not sure. If you're a market maker, your money's on the exchange. If you're pulling it to cold, it's because you're giving up the ability to market make because you have some kind of uncertainty in the market. So I wouldn't say they go in and out as a market maker. You're normally always in. If you're market making, you're always in the exchange, and you only pull off when you have either a period of sideways consolidation where you don't see the returns, or you've got a reason that you want to be extra cautious. And obviously, blowing up a big deposit is one of those reasons. I think that there's a triple whammy on Binance right now in terms of whether we call it FUD or really, let's call it a stress test. Banks regularly go through stress testing with their regulators. I don't know of any kind of stress testing that happens on exchanges, and typically, we've only got one or two of the public exchanges, which is Coinbase, where you can go through that auditability and stress testing. But Binance is being stress tested on 3 aspects. So firstly, it's the audit. Is there an audit that people actually understand? So it's not whether there's anything to be concerned about or not. The thing to be concerned about is that we just don't know, because we have no idea. We're all just speculating around that, and the audit can't be relied upon. The second is obviously stress testing it with massive withdrawals, which is a good thing. We used to have this culture in our industry. Every February, we used to do proof of keys, where simultaneously we would all withdraw our coins from exchanges on one day to stress test whether they could do that. So, and if you're back in one by one, you don't really care. You just got to be prepared for any kind of movements you need to do in order to meet those flows. Withdrawing on a mass scale is a really good stress test. And if Binance has nothing to hide, then they could only be happier that at the end of this, they'll come out stronger and happy for everyone to fulfill those withdrawals. The third one is a bit more concerning, which is obviously FTX heat. Binance has always obviously been an enemy of the US. Anyone that's not within the the US long arm of regulations is, although they have their US arm, they're way more interested in what happens outside the US arm, where the vast majority of the trading occurs. So they seem to want to make a signal to the market. This is a good opportunity for US for geopolitical reasons to try and put all of the crypto market within the confines of them having all the data, and getting the data all within the US to try and see what they can do to take out some of the enemies of the US in their mind, which is like Binance, Bitfinex, Tether, FTX is obviously the offshore stuff. We're finding out about that, but you got that trifactor. So they're coming after what they've been investigating for a long time, all the money laundering allegations. And they're saying that the DOJ is going to come out with something which tries to connect it with something more criminal. So we'll see what's happening on all those things. But I stress tested today. I hold a bit of a float on several exchanges just for my monthly accumulation. I took off about $1 million of Bitcoin, ETH, and Tether. It was all processed within in a reasonable time frame. It all happened as usual. So, for me, it passed the test for me. But let's see if it's going to stress test further.
I must say there have been no, just to be completely clear here, there have been no withdrawal issues except on USDC earlier today. CZ explained why there were withdrawal issues on USDC, and that is, you remember that there was a stage where Binance eliminated the use of USDC on their platform and replaced it with BUSD. So if you deposited USDC, you were automatically credited by BUSD. Now, that process was conducted in the back end, not by Binance, but actually by Paxos. And there is a loop in order to get BUSD to convert BUSD back to USDC. You have to go through a loop which involves a New York bank. And once they reached the end of their USDC stash, in order to reload with USDC, they had to wait for the US New York-based bank, which happened, and now everything's back to normal, and they're processing withdrawals back to normal. When CZ tweeted, he says, you're welcome to actually swap your money and withdraw one for one with no. So I'm going to just quote, I'm going to read CZ's quote. It says, on USDC, we have seen an increase in withdrawals. However, the channel to swap Paxos BUSD to USDC requires going through a bank in New York in USD. The banks are not open for another few hours. We expect the situation to be restored when the banks open. These are one-to-one conversions, no margin involved. We will also try to establish a more fluid swap channel in the future. In the meantime, feel free to withdraw any other stablecoin, BUSD, USDT, etc., etc. So right now, as it stands, there's definitely no withdrawal issues. CZ, I did reach out to him earlier and say, look, want to help? Do you want to join the spaces with us? And he said, look, I've got a whole lot of real work to do, and let's just keep on keeping on, keep our heads down, and keep building. So that's kind of where we're at. I'm going to put that tweet now on the spaces so that you guys can see. That's a 2-part tweet by CZ.
I did that. That is exactly what happened, because we had a Fireblocks integration with Binance Exchange. We have multiple exchanges at Bank to the Future. We're a Binance broker as well for when people want to trade their dividends into a different currency, and it goes through a range of exchanges. And they did release that update where they tried to convert over the USDC into BUSD, and that broke our system for a little bit. So we had to do an emergency release based upon that. So ironically, none of that would have happened if they hadn't, about a month ago, they didn't have that upgrade in order to try and push adoption from USDC to BUSD. Incidentally, Paxos, from my due diligence, I like the way that they structure their coin more than their stable coin more than anyone else, because the amount that they're exposed to in multiple accounts, whether this has actually been stress tested in reality, they actually, and BUSD is built upon Paxos. Paxos have a technology where you can build your own stablecoin for certain partners. But the way they use it is they have multiple accounts, which falls within the $250,000 FDIC limit, and then the rest of it is held in treasuries. So in theory, you're only exposed to FDIC and the credit rating of the US government, with Paxos, which is the backbone of BUSD, which is a pretty that's a pretty robust structure. Obviously, the main risk there is just the US government, because I mean FDIC only insures it's only got about 1% of the total amount of deposits it's insuring, so it would be broken during systemic, and that's why you had bailout in 2008.
So just
it's a pretty good structure.
Sorry to interrupt, Sam. There is I think it's a live stream from the New York Attorney General in about 4 minutes. Someone just sent me a message. He says, sorry, this is just coming in now. So it says there's a press conference in 8 minutes about the SPF arrest. I don't think that I can stream it because I'm actually streaming off my phone. I wonder if there's someone here who can stream it for us onto the spaces, and we can invite you up as a speaker. But that should give us a lot of clarity on why and how they charged him. That's happening in the next 4 minutes. On my research team, guys, if you could send me a link to that, we'll try and get it to go through this, but not sure.
Yeah, we might want to listen to that.
Same time as the World Cup semi-final.
Yeah, Jordy, what do you make of the Binance? I'm going to call it FUD because I don't know what else to call it. Allegations, FUD. I have actually asked Mike Alfred to come join us. If anybody knows him and can ping him, tell him he's more than welcome to come up here because he seems to be quite vocal about it. I'd love to hear more.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing about the USDC thing, I think I was the first one to respond to Travis's tweet and just explained, there is no reason for them to have a lot of USDC because they're trying to get the interest rate, right? Otherwise, Circle gets the 4 or 5% interest rate. So Binance has created their own coin, and there's no reason for them to even have USDC. So the fact that they ran out is not strange. I did post, they do have a wallet that has 800 million of USDC. It's one of their Nansen wallets. I wasn't sure why they were not using that.
So, Jordy, that's their Binance-backed USDC, which I actually posted about. So that's So you've got USDC on BSC that they run. It's good they don't touch that because if they start touching that, then that USDC will start depegging on BSC effectively. So if they start touching that, then you should really worry because then effectively they're touching, customer funds in order to, give other customers their funds back. Yeah. So it's good that they don't touch that.
That's good.
If anyone can connect Facebook Live to their phone and stream and be invited as speaker, I'd love for you guys to stream because I'm not at the office. I'm actually at home, so I'm not connected to a sound board. But if anyone can do it, please DM me so we can actually stream this testimony or this U.S. Attorney General stream live.
Do you have a link to it, Ran? Can you pin the link?
Yeah, it's a Facebook. What I'll do is I'll pin the link. It'll be
tweet the link and then pin it to
I'll tweet the link and see if anybody can connect it. It'll be 1 second. I'll tweet that link.
I got a feeling on your phone when you play it, it will just mess up with. Well, I guess you'd have to have two devices, right?
You need to have like a soundboard or something along that. I mean, usually we have a soundboard.
If you played it from your iPad and just put your iPhone up to it and became a speaker, that would work.
Yeah, I'll try that. I'm going to share the tweet now. I have shared it. It's a tweet from DB, which is tier 10, tier 10K. That press conference starts in a couple of minutes, probably 2-3 minutes from now.
Hey guys, sorry to cut in, but with respect to these exchanges on crypto, something that struck me was that Hotbit 24-hour trade volume is up 380%. and MEXC is also up 150%. So while Binance is doing a lot of volume, they're only up 58%. So I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on these other two exchanges that are much smaller than Binance, but with their extreme volatility, extreme rise in volume throughput.
Run.
Yes.
One word, run. You don't want to have
Okay.
any funds on any exchange right now unless you have a good reason to be there. And there's
I mean,
no
those
good reason
exchanges,
unless you're willing to lose it all.
yeah, there's a lot of exchanges that we can't necessarily trust the volume numbers. They try to rise up the rankings, for publicity, and
just watch trading. As simple as that.
watch trading. Yeah, simple as that.
Well,
Yeah, Jody,
hold on.
Before we jump on to the next topic, I would actually like to hear what Jody was about to say for the Binance allegations FUD, whatever you want to call it.
Two things very quickly. One, obviously, there's a lot of PTSD right now with FTX. It's very understandable. A lot of us didn't imagine that things would get that far. So now it's similarly like far stretched, but we're saying, maybe let's be safe, which I totally understand. I mean, I get Simon's sentiment. I do think that, maybe he forgets most people are not as comfortable with self-custody. There's a lot of hackers waiting for people to move coins off exchange. There's not many cases, or I don't know any cases, where anyone with a 2FA on an exchange has had the funds stolen if it's not an SMS 2FA, but like a phone 2FA, like a Google 2FA or something. So there's probably a lot of hackers waiting for people to move coins who don't know, who've never done it before, and they don't know how to keep their seed phrases and everything else. So be careful. I would say like maybe if you have a Coinbase account or something that's, maybe safer, just don't do things you're not comfortable with. And then secondly, like on the Binance FUD specifically, there's fraud, there's hacking and hiding hacking. And the third option is, regulators are going to find a way to shut it down. In terms of fraud, I'm personally not too worried because they really, like, this is their business model. Like it's not like Alameda, SBF, where there's two business models and the two business models are competing. One's a hedge fund and, they're trying to do all crazy stuff. This business model is pretty clear, right? Like they make billions of dollars a year just by like keeping the liquidity. So I don't think there's fraud. Second option, is there the chance that there's been a huge hack and we haven't known about it and that there's like a big hole? It's very unlikely. Now, some of the audits that they've done have been a bit not clear. When you have tens and tens of billions of dollars, you might want to have things a bit more cleaner in terms of your wallets and how you do it. So if people have gotten freaked out with things not being as clean, have they been hiding like a huge hack? It doesn't seem that way, but I guess that's like a small concern. And then the third thing that is more of a concern is obviously there's a lot of people rolling on each other right now. Probably like Caroline is rolling on SBF and who knows what's going on. And whatever dirt anybody has on anybody else is getting used up. Maybe there's some, they've been going after CZ and Binance for a long time. We have all this money laundering in Iran and all this stuff. So maybe we will see some headlines in terms of fighting them, but will that stop withdrawals? Unlikely, but again, there's some reason to be concerned about that.
You know what worries me? What worries me is not Binance as Binance is operating today. Because I actually think that over the past couple of years, Binance has had a real focus on compliance and becoming more regulated, etc., etc. What worries me is the Binance that was in the beginning when Binance started, where they didn't have KYC, where they listed a whole lot of altcoins without. Remember, I'll remind you that Binance made their name by listing all the altcoins before Coinbase and others could list them, right? That's how Binance built their exchange. I'm worried that they would have made mistakes 3-4 years ago, and that those mistakes are the ones that will come and bite them in the bum. I don't think that I think right now they're probably using a very, very, very they're probably very, very, very clean. But I'm worried about what happened before they became very clean.
Well, just a year ago,
that's a real
you could.
concern. Yeah.
Just a year ago, you could pretty much trade unlimited on Binance, withdraw up to 5 BTC a day, no KYC. So I guess that's probably the biggest problem I would see
Yeah,
from a kind of KYC AML.
I agree with what Jordy says is there's a lot of people who are trying to spread awareness, but what I see most happening is it's just people who've suffered and they want others to suffer. I don't know why like this is the case. And the other big difference between what happened with FTX and with what happened with Binance is people are casually forgetting that there's like a you can check the cold wallets, cold storage wallets, which has like 60 billion. Then you can check that it has like about $10 billion worth of BTC on the exchange. So it's like the chances of a bank run. I mean, look, you can call this a bank run. People are going to the bank to take money out. But the problem happens when people try to take out more than what's actually there. It doesn't matter whether they're one to one or they have all they 100% of what they're supposed to have. What matters is how much people are willing to take out and whether you reach that threshold where there's like not enough left. And if I can see there's like about 670, 80 billion, if not even more, of stuff that they own, yeah, I just think that the possibility of a successful bank run is very, very less compared to what it was with FTX. Now, full disclosure, nobody saw FTX coming. I agree. I like, yeah. I mean, that's just what I think. I mean, what do you guys think?
Well, I don't know if you can hear me, but you can't. I think there's a misconception, and you can't bank run an exchange. The only time you can bank run an exchange if they're committing fraud. So that's what we got to realize. So SBF with FTX was committing fraud, so that's why it got bank run. As Simon was saying, exchanges should be holding customer deposits as per their T's and C's 1-to-1. So we can't bank run an exchange. However, they can have certain liquidity issues, like we saw with Binance, where because of the nature of their convert USDC to BUSD on the back end, they can have certain liquidity crunches or issues in that. Secondly, what we also saw is they didn't have enough USDT on Ethereum, so they had to do a swap with Tether, where you saw Tether put that announcement. They had to swap from Tron or TRX onto Ethereum. So you can see that where users withdraw too much on one chain and they don't have enough liquidity on that chain, because as if you go into Binance, you can deposit USDT on Ethereum but withdraw on another blockchain. So that could create some issues. So I think those are the two
Rand,
issues that
I found the YouTube. Sorry to interrupt. I found the YouTube link. I don't know if it's going to start anytime soon.
I've shared it. And I am watching for it live.
Oh,
I
it's
would
live
love
now, yeah?
I've shared it. It's not. It hasn't started yet. I am watching it in the background. I would love it if someone could ping me
So
and dial
couldn't you
in.
just pay it and put your phone up to it?
Yeah, I could. I just don't know if the quality is going to be good enough. But that's failing anything else. That's what we're going to do. I am watching for it live, so you guys can carry on discussion. I'll interrupt you when this thing happens, and we'll really try and keep this up to the minute. Umbrella, carry on it. I think you're on a good trajectory there.
Yeah, so Bombay, just going to that, I guess you can't bank run a legitimate non-fraudulent exchange. So that's what everyone's going to realize. Everyone can withdraw their tokens or coins off an exchange, and you shouldn't be able to bank run. Probably, as I said, the one issue is that they don't have enough coins or tokens on a specific chain where their cryptocurrency is held. So there might be like we saw earlier, there might be a delay. Or secondly, it's held in cold storage, and they need to, get access to those certain cold storage wallets that might take a bit of time. So you might see delays. So those are the two things that you might see.
I mean, look, first up,
bear in mind that Binance is not FTX. Binance, as of this morning, had $65 billion worth of assets. I don't think that, FTX, the entire whole was $8 billion. You're talking about a behemoth that is 8 times the size. Now, for a real bank run to happen, if Binance wasn't fully backed, you would need at least another 40-50 billion to be withdrawn before you would see that there's actually not enough to pay the last 5-10 billion worth of people if there was really a bank run. The second thing is that Binance is way more transparent than FTX. So FTX, a lot of the wallets were hidden. There was the whole Alameda banking issue. Binance has been a lot more transparent about their wallets. Binance has done a whole lot of proof of reserve audits and stuff like that, which may not be everything, but may have something. So we have the New York Attorney General starting to speak. It looks like. I don't know if you guys can hear this. The sound quality is not amazing.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Damian Williams, and I'm the U.S. Attorney here in the Southern District. Cryptocurrency exchanges collapsed, destroying billions of dollars in customer value overnight. And for every day of the past month, the dedicated prosecutors of this office and our partners at the FBI, SEC, and CFTC have been working around the clock to figure out what happened and to begin the process of seeking justice. This morning, we unsealed an 8-count indictment charging Samuel Bankman-Fried, FTX's founder, with a series of interrelated fraud schemes that contributed to FTX's collapse. I authorized these charges last week, Wednesday. A grand jury here in Manhattan indicted Mr. Bankman-Fried last week, Friday. We obtained a warrant for his arrest, and that arrest was executed yesterday in the Bahamas. Now, let me be clear. My remarks today are going to be limited. That is by design. This investigation is very much ongoing, and it is moving very quickly. But I also want to be clear about something else. While this is our first public announcement, it will not be our last. The indictment has 8 counts, but effectively, it outlines 4 different areas of misconduct. First, we allege that Bankman-Fried defrauded customers of FTX.com, the cryptocurrency exchange that he founded. Second, we allege that he defrauded lenders to Alameda Research, his proprietary hedge fund. Third, we allege that he defrauded investors in FTX. And lastly, we allege that he violated campaign finance laws. Now, let me say a little bit more about what we allege in the indictment. First, we charge that from 2019 until earlier this year, Bankman-Fried and his co-conspirators stole billions of dollars from FTX customers. He used that money for his personal benefit, including to make personal investments and to cover expenses and debts of his hedge fund, Alameda Research. Secondly, and relatedly, we charge that Bankman-Fried lied to Alameda's lenders about the source of the money that he was using to pay those debts. Third, we charge that earlier this year, in the midst of the crypto crisis, Bankman-Fried lied to investors in FTX about the fact that he had sent billions of dollars in FTX customer money to Alameda. And fourth, we charge that Bankman-Fried violated federal campaign finance laws by causing tens of millions of dollars in illegal campaign contributions to be made to candidates and committees associated with both Democrats and Republicans. These contributions were disguised to look like they were coming from wealthy co-conspirators, when in fact, the contributions were funded by Alameda Research with stolen customer money. And all of this dirty money was used in service of Bankman-Fried's desire to buy bipartisan influence and impact the direction of public policy in Washington. To anyone who is watching this or hears about this prosecution, if you believe that you have been a victim of these schemes or you have information about the conduct that we've alleged in our indictment that we've unsealed today, please let us know. To any person, entity, or political campaign that has received stolen customer money, we ask that you work with us to return that money to the innocent victims. And to anyone who participated in wrongdoing at FTX or Alameda Research and who has not yet come forward, I would strongly encourage you to come see us before we come see you. Now, let me say a word about the SEC and the CFTC. The women and men of the FBI are some of the finest public servants in this country, and they have been with us since day one in this investigation, and there is no one better to work with. I want to thank the brilliant lawyers at the SEC and the CFTC. This investigation is complex and it's sprawling. We embrace that kind of challenge here in the Southern District of New York, and we always want the CFTC and the SEC by our side when we're doing that. And finally, I want to thank the career prosecutors from my office handling this case, Nicholas Rose and Danielle Sassoon, and their supervisors, Scott Hartman and Matthew Podolsky, the chiefs of our Securities and Commodities Fraud Task Force. I want to acknowledge the contributions and hard work of the prosecutors from our Money Laundering and Transnational Criminal Enterprises Unit, including Samuel Raymond and Thane Wren, and their chiefs, Jessica Feinstein and Tara Lamort. And I want to acknowledge the contributions from the chief of our Public Corruption Unit, Rebecca Donaleski. This should be very clear, but it's an all-hands-on-deck investigation here in SDNY, and I couldn't be prouder of the team that I'm privileged to lead. I now want to invite up to the podium FBI Assistant Director in Charge, Michael Driscoll.
Wow, I mean, he's pretty serious.
Thank you, Damien. So thank you all for joining us this afternoon for this important announcement. This case came together at great speed, and such that it's only possible to be standing here today through tremendous coordination and cooperation from many people and agencies. As the indictment today alleges, Bankman-Fried knowingly defrauded customers of FTX through the misappropriation of customer deposits to pay expenses and debts of a different company. In addition, Bankman-Fried executed deliberate transactions designed to obscure and disguise the misuse of customer funds. He preyed on his customers, the victims of this case, abusing the trust placed not only in his company, but in himself as the lead of that company. We are determined to help the victims of this case get a sense of justice, and we will continue to make every attempt to recover as much of their funds as possible. If you're willing to deceive customers and attempt to hide your actions, we will be persistent in pursuing you and ensuring you are brought to justice. I want to thank Damian Williams and his team at the Southern District for their cooperation and partnership on this case. I also want to thank our partners at the SEC and the CFTC for their outstanding work. A word of thanks to DEA's Aviation Division and their Foreign Operations Group for their logistics and resource assistance over the past few days. Our field offices in Boston, Miami, Washington, D.C., and our Legat office in Bridgetown. FBI headquarters components that fed and worked on this case, from Criminal Investigative Division, our CERG team, Crisis Incident Response Group, and our International Operations Division. And of course, the special agents and forensic accountants from our Securities Fraud Squad, as well as the Money Laundering Squad. The Justice Department Office of International Affairs has been an important partner in this. And of course, as Damien noted before, his team in Securities and Commodities Fraud, Money Laundering, and Transnational Criminal Enterprise Unit has been a true partner in this case. I also want to thank our international law enforcement partners. These kind of cases do not happen without that kind of coordination, and I specifically want to note the assistance provided by the Royal Bahamas Police Force. And I want to be clear, this case is about fraud. Fraud is fraud. It does not matter the complexity of the investment scheme. It does not matter the amount of money involved. If you mislead and deceive to take what does not belong to you, we will hold you accountable. And I'd like to thank everyone who's been working on this case for helping us adhere to that principle today. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kabir Graywal, the Director of the SEC's Division of Enforcement. Today, in a parallel civil complaint, the SEC filed charges against Sam Bankman-Fried, alleging that he orchestrated a years-long scheme to defraud equity investors in FTX Trading Limited, a company that he co-founded and led as CEO until its collapse last month. As alleged in our complaint, starting in 2019 and continuing through November 2022, Bankman-Fried raised more than $1.8 billion from equity investors on the basis of lies. You see, FTX operated behind a veneer of legitimacy that Bankman-Fried created by, among other things, repeatedly touting to investors FTX's top-notch automated risk controls that he claimed protected customer assets, and by repeatedly claiming that those assets were at all times safe, segregated, and secure. But as we allege in our complaint, that veneer wasn't just thin, it was also fraudulent. Because in reality, from FTX's inception in 2019, Bankman-Fried began secretly and improperly diverting FTX customer funds to his crypto hedge fund, Alameda Research. And as alleged in our complaint, he then misused those funds to make undisclosed venture investments, lavish real estate purchases, and large political donations. Bankman-Fried's claims about FTX's sophisticated risk controls and other customer protections were simply bogus. Similarly, his representations to FTX investors and trading customers concerning Alameda were also part of that carefully crafted veneer and were similarly false and misleading. He frequently claimed that Alameda was just another customer with no special privileges at FTX. But in truth, Bankman-Fried directed that Alameda be exempt from the very risk management measures that he touted to FTX investors and to its customers. He also provided Alameda a virtually unlimited line of credit funded by FTX customers. And he also diverted billions of dollars in customer funds from FTX to Alameda. Bankman-Fried's entire house of cards started to crumble as crypto asset prices plummeted in May of 2022, and as Alameda's lenders demanded repayment on billions of dollars in loans. But to continue propping up his empire, we allege that Bankman-Fried diverted billions more in FTX customer assets to Alameda, even as it was increasingly clear that Alameda and FTX could not make those customers whole. In fact, through the summer of 2022, he diverted hundreds of millions more in FTX customer funds to Alameda, which he then used for additional venture investments and for loans to himself and to other FTX executives. All the while, he continued to make misleading statements to investors about FTX's financial condition and about its risk management. And even in November 2022, faced with billions of dollars in customer withdrawal requests that FTX could not fulfill, Bankman-Fried misled investors from whom he sought still more money to plug the multi-billion-dollar holes that he had created. His brazen multi-year scheme finally came to an end when FTX, Alameda, and their tangled web of affiliates filed for bankruptcy on November 11th, 2022. That collapse has had far-reaching consequences for FTX customers, for its investors, and for its counterparties. And our investigation into those consequences, into those individuals and entities involved, remains ongoing. But one immediate takeaway from today's announcement should be that non-compliant trading platforms pose dramatic risks to both their investors and to their customers. Among other things, they don't provide them with the same robust level of disclosures and protections against fraud and conflicts of interest. That's what traditional U.S. registered securities exchanges provide. So it's imperative that non-compliant platforms come into compliance. But as Chair Gensler has made clear, the runway is getting shorter for them to come in and to register with us. And for those who do not, the Enforcement Division stands ready to take action. I'd like to recognize the incredible team from our Crypto Assets and Cyber Unit and from across our division responsible for today's action. Devlin Sue, Ivan Snyder, David Brown, Ryan Huckrow, Pasha Salimi investigated this matter under the supervision of Amy Hartman, Michael Brennan, Jorge Tenrero, and David Hirsch. Amy Burkhardt and David D'Audio will lead the litigation against Bankman-Fried under the supervision of LaDan Stewart and Olivia Che. Finally, I want to commend our partners here at the Southern District of New York under the leadership of U.S. Attorney Damian Williams and our partners at the FBI and the CFTC. This is yet another strong example of the collaboration that you see before you this afternoon. With that, I'll turn it back to U.S. Attorney Williams. Thank you.
I'd like to welcome up Gretchen Lowe from the CFTC.
Good afternoon. I'm Acting Director Gretchen Lowe, Acting Director of the Division of Enforcement at the CFTC, Gretchen Lowe. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today. Today, the CFTC filed a complaint against Sam Bankman-Fried and his companies, FTX and Alameda, charging a fraudulent scheme that dates back to the launch of FTX.com exchange in May 2019. The CFTC's complaint specifically charges defendants with fraud by misappropriation of customer funds, as well as false statements to the public, customers, investors, and Congress about the handling and security of those funds. As alleged, there are over $8 billion in customer losses that we've ascertained as of today. The rippling consequences of defendants' fraud are vast and have done significant damage to the integrity of the evolving digital asset market. The CFTC charges that at Bankman-Fried's direction, FTX customer deposits intended to be used to trade digital asset commodity futures, swaps, and other products were not appropriately segregated by FTX. Instead, customer funds were held in Alameda accounts where they were commingled and misappropriated for a variety of unauthorized purposes, such as use in high-risk investments in other digital asset enterprises, political contributions, and to purchase luxury real estate. As charged, the fraudulent use of customer funds by Bankman-Fried and his companies were inconsistent with the touted FTX terms of service and contrary to numerous public statements made by Bankman-Fried. The CFTC also charges that defendants created features in the underlying code for FTX that allowed Alameda to have essentially an unlimited line of credit on the exchange. Defendants also provided Alameda with unfair trading advantages, including quicker execution times and an exemption from FTX's auto liquidation risk management process. This massive and costly fraud was in the connection with commodities interstate commerce, and as alleged, including Bitcoin, Ether, and Tether, which are the most widely traded digital assets in the world. Bitcoin and Ether also underlie derivatives contracts on CFTC designated exchanges. Lastly, standing here today with the U.S. Attorney's Office at the Southern District, FBI, and the SEC represents yet another stellar example of the importance of federal regulators and federal criminal authorities working collaboratively and effectively with each other to achieve justice. The teams worked quickly and tirelessly to obtain compelling evidence and to begin to hold those responsible for the FTX collapse accountable, all within a very short time frame. Thank you to all at the SDNY, FBI, and SEC for your cooperation. And thank you to the CFTC team, Nina Rubinsky, Carlin Metzger, Brian Sue, Ben Jackman, Yusuf Japar, supervised by Deputy Director Robert Howell and Chief Trial Elizabeth Pendleton, and many, many others at the Commission who supported the work. I am proud of your hard work, your dedication to the mission of the Commission, and for always acting in the public interest. Thank you.
All right, happy to take some questions.
I must say, I'm quite surprised that they are taking questions.
Number one, what is the situation with extradition? And finally,
if you can't hear, they're talking about the extradition with the situation with extradition.
Is typically slightly more shorts than a t-shirt. He was incredibly bright. Can you address the fact that he didn't fit the profile and that's part of the way he said was fooled so many people?
Well, you can commit fraud in shorts and t-shirts in the sun. I mean, that's possible too. So I think that addresses the last question. In terms of whether we're going to bring charges against anyone else, look, I can only say it this clearly, but we are not done.
And extradition?
Extradition is ongoing in the Bahamas. I don't have anything to add on that. Next question.
Today, why not let him do it? And that is a favor in record time and then just like really good job. Can you explain how you were able to do it, why you do it?
Okay, so on the timing of the arrest, as I mentioned before, I authorized charges last week Wednesday, and he was indicted as a defendant in this district as of last week Friday, and we had a warrant for his arrest. And so the timing was dictated by law enforcement as opposed to any other considerations, including the timing of his testimony in Congress. He was wanted for arrest, and we acted on that. In terms of the speed of the investigation, you're right. This is very, very fast, but I've also underscored that we're not done. But we have a track record here. I think you've seen us this group in particular at this podium multiple times since I've been U.S. attorney, announcing charges in this space with a lot of speed. I think that's a result of the collaboration and the hard work and the determination to make sure that we are acting as soon as possible and no sooner. Next question.
Very tough to hear the questions. We will listen to the answers though.
Look, I think today's announcement is about one person and his conduct. It is fair to say that this office and our partners who are standing with us today are very, very active in this space. I can't say anything more than that. Next question. Are any partners collaborating and exposed very So if you're asking about who is cooperating, who is not cooperating with our investigation, I'm not at liberty to say who has come in. I will reiterate the call that I made before, that if you have not reached out to us to talk to us, I would encourage you strongly to do so and do so quickly. Next question.
Just to follow up on that, you had said that for anyone that is not cooperating, that there are some and then again, I think all of the charges filed today with reference that this is an ongoing was found. Is there anything that something could be done quicker?
Rand, the audio is a bit poor. I'm not sure if we're going to.
I'll take the last question first. I don't think it's fair for me to speculate as to what could have been done differently by whom and when to prevent something like this from happening. I mean, we've alleged willful misconduct and fraud. And so ultimately, from where I sit, given my role, I view the fault as being with the people who we have alleged, either in the indictment or references CCs, co-conspirators, as being the people who are responsible for this happening. Can you repeat the first question again?
When they ask questions, you can't really hear it. They don't have microphones. I think he's the only one who's mic'd up. That's why.
Yeah, don't really think they're going to say anything.
I'm not going to expand beyond what I said previously. Next question.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess we've now heard it from the New York Attorney General. We've heard it now from the SEC. We heard from the CFTC. We heard from the FBI. This is a very, very coordinated investigation. And, I mean, I must say, I think I'm quite impressed with law enforcement and the speed at which they've acted. And I also think that now we realize how dumb SBF was to be speaking so freely and not to be speaking through a lawyer when his lawyers advised him not to speak. We now realize that mistake could have cost him a lot in terms of, I think he gave them a lot of information to act upon when he opened his mouth without against the advice of his lawyers.
Do you know what? I'm happy, but I'm really pissed about one detail, that they didn't just coordinate with Congress and allow SBF to speak today. I mean, that's just such a shame that it was just John Ray today. It would have been, it just would have. I mean, just watching this whole thing, Ran, when like it's so surreal when you were interrogating him and we were trying to get him to accept that he was commingling funds, and he's just been given all this BS, and then he's done this roadshow. Then he did the call with Tiffany, which is hilarious. That was covered in Congress today. And that one final thing, I guess we can't ask for too much, but if only we could have just got it where he was able to take the stand today, I think that would have been like everything in the right direction. What do you think then? Do you think it was unfortunate timing, or do you think that there was something that was working in his favor that he didn't have to take the stand today?
I mean, look, guys, you don't have to put up your hands. If you want to talk, just feel free to talk. Just join the conversation. I see a lot of you guys are putting up your hands. Feel free to talk. Feel free to join. Tiffany, for some reason, it won't let me add you as a speaker. I'm going to kick you out, and I'm going to send you a separate invite to join. I can see you are trying to join. For some reason, it's not letting me add you as a speaker. So I'm going to drop you off, and I'm going to add you back on. Hopefully, that will sort it out. Simon, in answer to your question, I kind of hoped that he would speak today, but on the other hand, when I saw his testimony, I realized that he was trying to be as vague as possible, and I don't know, I think that he will have his day, and we shouldn't be in a rush. It will happen sooner rather than later. It's going to happen very, very soon, I think.
Yeah, the whole theme today, though, I don't know if you watched the whole thing. I did watch the whole thing. So much of it was the narrative of the people in Congress. So much of it came from our spaces and everything that happened on Twitter before. And those interviews that he gave, I believe that they've played a massive role on what's going to happen and what the outcome was. And I'm still trying to figure out, is there some kind of greater strategy that he knew about? Because all I can see right now is that it was the most stupid move, like, ever.
I think,
Yeah.
as I said, go ahead, Bella, go ahead.
Yeah, like when they gave that indictment, it felt like a lot of what they were saying came off a lot of Twitter threads that people were putting out there. So I'm pretty sure they used a lot of kind of the threads in terms of what people were putting out, in terms of the analysis, what people were putting out to help with the investigation. It just shows that, what we put out there, both in terms of citizen journalism and analysis, can help, putting someone like Sam Bankman-Fried behind bars.
I agree with the aspect of citizen journalism because I do it on my channel all the time. But my only issue with it is that these people in power, the public servants, they are clearly incapable of doing their job. These people are in power. They're the ones that are going to make the decision. It doesn't matter how much we dig. It doesn't matter how much information we put out there. It doesn't matter how much research we do. They are taking information from us and pretending that they know how to do their job, and the taxpayers are paying for it. And this is where it becomes problematic, is these people are out here pretending, oh, we're going to protect you, we're going to do all these good things. I think the FSB came out today and said, oh, this all of this wouldn't have happened with Terra Luna and company X, Y, and Z if we would have treated these companies like banks. Where were they since 2017? Where were they? Because everybody pretty much registered with whatever states they were doing business in. They were there. Where were the public servants? So it's great that they're using citizen journalism, and it's great that they're taking data from all of our hard work. But at the same time, they're not capable of doing their job. And to me, it's just basic lip service. It's not doing anything because we're not going to see justice. I mean, all the damage is done already. And I honestly think that this was all orchestrated to push through their CBDC. Because
don't you think the fact that our industry got ahead of it before the official authorities, do you think it's even possible? Like, to me, this is a signal of self-regulation cooperating with there were bits that we can't do the law enforcement part. We can judge them, we can ask the questions, we understand our industry, we can get ahead of it, but the final part is what they're doing right now. Do you not see it as more of this was a new way of collaborating, where the industry said, this guy's full of shit, this guy is a bad actor, we don't want him as part of our industry, and then they got the information that they needed in order to do the part that we can't do? Maybe that's not a bad thing.
I think it's a good thing to an extent, but at the same time, we have people in power that are going to make decisions that are going to impact the entire industry. And it's not just crypto. It's going to be Bitcoin, and it's going to be NFTs. It's going to be the entire industry. We have these people that are using our data, which is great, but I don't think that they fully understand how our industry works. And I'm a big proponent of self-regulation. I love to see people use their mind to critically think and make decisions for themselves. I think every human being is completely capable of investing and making good decisions. I just think, especially with American politics and the way our society is set up, we're dumbed down and we're not taught to use critical thinking. Again, it's great that we're using citizen journalism. It's great that the industry and the people that have done the hard work are getting the recognition they deserve. I'm just very concerned with the types of regulations that are going to be put into play and how detrimental it will be for the industry. Jane,
that was obvious with the questioning. They're really gonna, they were really, let's say that the congressmen and women were commingling FTX with Bitcoin and crypto and just using it as I mean, one of them, what did he try to say? It was like clown crypto, or he wanted to try and rename it or something silly. But yeah, they're definitely using this as a strategic opportunity to push their narrative of what they were trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And yeah, definitely.
I agree. I think they were actually way ahead of us. I think this has been planned out for many years. I think this was basically a setup, like I'm going to echo what Wendy was saying, for CBDCs. I also think it was for big companies, hedge funds, corporations, specifically BlackRock, because they're pushing USDC, which is a World Economic Forum company. And I honestly think this is a setup. I think we're watching it play out, and they're trying to gauge what kind of response they're going to get from us and kind of maneuvering around it. I feel like if we didn't get upset enough, they probably wouldn't even held this hearing today.
Well, to James' point,
I mean,
guys, think about the historical context of how we get things, how freedoms get taken away, right? Like it's the more scared we get, the context is, how quickly did we give up? Did we ask for something like the Patriot Act? How willing we were to, forfeit a lot of our constitutional freedoms for this guise of safety. I think when you look at the cases that the SEC and the government are holding up right now around fraud, sometimes they'll go after a very small case, a $2 million case, when it's a name like Coinbase or it's a name like OpenSea. Which indicates to me that it's less about recovering funds or making people whole or finding remediation or justice. It's more about finding PR, and things that are going to make the biggest PR splash, which to me says that, again, it's more about driving a narrative. And this is the concern that I have is to Wendy's, going back to Wendy's point, guys. There's a case, I don't know if Ran, if I'm allowed to pin up top, but I'll at the very least reply to
please
the.
do.
Okay.
Please do if you can. If not, just let me know what it is.
There's a case where the Eastern District of New York was going after a hack of an exchange called LCX. And this exchange, it was like an $8 million hack, I think, or something like this. They've been working at it for a year and a half now, I think. And just a couple months ago is when they approved this unique exception, this unique precedent where they were able to service summons by airdropping in an NFT into the hacker's wallet. Now, the hacker's still a John Doe. They don't know who it is, but they're able to do this such that they can indicate that they made every effort to serve. They had witnesses because it's a public blockchain, and that they can then move forward with the case because there's statute of limitation issues and things like this. So they can move forward with the case and then sort of backdate the check later when they find out who it is. The problem was they did this by adding in the title of the NFT a sort of a URL, right? A URL with a tracking pixel. And so they said that the reason why that this would pass the standard of requirement necessary is because they'll be able to know when this person sees the summons order via an NFT, because they will have clicked that URL and they'll be able to see that there's a click. See, this is the problem. This is how far behind they are in the technology. Because obviously, this is a public blockchain. Anybody can go see this NFT was airdropped in. Anybody on Etherscan can go and click that link, and it doesn't indicate one bit whether or not that was the hacker, whether that was the culpable party or not. And so the passing precedents even and moving things along that are going to completely be undone. Now, I have this to me indicates, like, at least in this case, at least in the area of like the judicial system, how far behind a lot of these guys are still. And when I think about that, I think I couldn't. You talk about citizen journalism, right? I couldn't help but go and start poking around the other wallets, right? This is what I do for a living, and I happened to notice that within 15 minutes, I had the inflow KYC exchange and the outflow KYC exchange of the culpable party, meaning that had I had subpoena power, I could go get this person's identity tomorrow. So I just wonder how many resources this particular case had expended for the year and a half, how much time was wasted when they just didn't know enough about blockchain forensics to make these very simple conclusions and draw these simple steps. And this is
I want to
to be
just,
very
yeah,
worrying.
And
I want to just
and
interject
they
there
want to
and
make
just say,
NFTs a secure. They want to make NFTs a security. You see how problematic this is? We have this really great technology that can be used for good, but at the same time, they are taking it and they're distorting what it actually is. There's bad actors in every single industry. I come from the healthcare industry. I worked there 7 years. Infectious disease, HIV/AIDS. The amount of terrible things that happen are insane, and it is heavily regulated. Of course, there's bad actors in crypto, but there's bad actors everywhere, and they want to take this really great technology that can be used for a good thing and make it a bad thing and give us these really terrible laws and regulations. That's
Rand,
what really pisses me off.
Rand, to your credit, our industry possesses the knowledge and the capacity to fight these things, to innovate in these areas. But the problem, to
I
my
don't know.
mind, is
Let me
there's not
interject.
enough.
Hold on.
I feel like
I think
we're getting too far down this route, right? Like today's a
agree.
good day. A lot of people thought, he's paid off too many people. He's not going to get arrested. Nothing's going to happen to him. They are clearly throwing the goddamn book at him. He's getting charged by everybody. First of all, this is good for the crypto space. It shows that there are consequences to like fraud and scams, even in crypto. This will kind of clean up a lot of the shady actors. We have shown that it's hard to self-regulate. Like, yeah, eventually maybe we'll all get to DeFi, and hopefully like that's not made illegal. And I agree with some of the concerns. We don't want them to make a bunch of stuff illegal. If they want to go after centralized frauds, that's actually good for everybody. So let's not get too on track. Like today is a good day. We should be kind of happy and celebrating that there is some sense of justice. I agree with some of the speakers that they're not necessarily the most aware of the technology. Like you heard how they were saying some of the words like Ethereum and Bitcoin. Like they don't even know how to pronounce. That's fine. They have probably like lower downs. They're doing all the legwork, and then the higher ups just get the credit and they read the thing. That's fine. Like ultimately, they're doing a good job. I pinned a tweet like in terms of citizen journalism. I was speculating. I put a tweet like over a month ago now. I just thought that maybe there was a chance that there was a no liquidation account that Alameda was using, that they were just running losses and just kind of playing with house money based on a few like inside information I had. And it looks like they've gone down that route and they've checked it out, and it looks like it's true. So this is a good day.
So
I don't want to like get too negative.
I agree. Jody, I want to just reiterate a couple of things here that I think people have missed. I think the first thing is I want to talk to Wendy's point about the fact that they are using our information against us, kind of thing. And I don't think so. I think that if you look at who caught out all the failures in our industry, all the recent big failures in the industry, the Celsius collapse, the Voyager collapse, the FTX collapse, it was people on Twitter doing on-chain and off-chain research using great information that is available to us. And what we realized is that we've actually got a very good community that is very, very, very capable of not only self-policing, because the one thing that we've done very, very well here is we've self-policed. When we realized that there were holes in the Alameda balance sheet, it was us that found it, and it was us that caused the bank run on FTX, and it was us that caused FTX to be shut down. It wasn't Gary Gensler, it wasn't the FBI, it wasn't the New York Attorney General. We as in the crypto industry, small accounts, Twitter accounts doing on-chain research caused the fall of this. And I think the second thing is we're also very good at policing. In other words, when I say policing, when we don't like something, we kill it. We put it into a prison. We make people leave and completely move away from it. So don't underestimate the power that we have got as a crypto community. Now, moving on to regulation. I think the regulators are behind. I think the regulators have failed us tremendously because the truth is that we shouldn't have had to be policing ourselves. And we ended up finding ourselves in a position where we are policing ourselves because they cannot assist us. We know that Gary Gensler had multiple meetings with FTX. We know that Gary Gensler encouraged multiple exchanges to register with the SEC. And despite that, Gary Gensler and the SEC failed to prevent this kind of bank run. So I think there's lots to celebrate here. And what I'm celebrating here is more and more we're realizing how smart the crypto community is, how analytical the crypto community is. We're realizing a lot of this, and I think, like Jordy says, today is a good day. Today is a good day because A, we have Sam Bankman-Fried arrested. We see that the law enforcement are following our lead here, and using our information to build their cases, which just shows that ultimately we have a lot of the power that we need. I think it's a good day as well. I mean, because I think Binance is being stress tested, and I think that the stress test ultimately is a good thing. Also, I want to say that as much as I love Binance, and I really do love Binance, and I love CZ, and I think that the ultimate exchange, as a crypto user, I feel really uncomfortable that we have one really, really, really big point of failure. And I think that what we should celebrate today is that people are stress testing this point of failure and considering potential options. So that's that. Just while we're speaking, two things have happened. I just want to quickly break the news here. The first thing is that Bahamian judge says that if SBF has the right to apply for bail, and probably will apply for bail, then Coindesk just broke an article. It says in his first court appearance post-arrest, SBF told a Bahamas judge that he was not waiving his right to fight extradition. The US, he wore a suit and requested permission to take medication. I wonder what that medication actually was.
Yeah, we have to celebrate, because literally for the past few weeks, SBF was just on here, just scamming us, like lying, complete BS, pretending that this was an accident. He didn't know anything about it. Now, okay, so we exposed it. We got the citizen, civilian journalism, whatever we call it, and they used all the words. But come on, we normally half of the things that we would have exposed, we would have been called tinfoil hats. And all those words were being used, and they are going to be used against him. He just absolutely lied point blank about everything over the last few weeks. And law enforcement are going to make sure that that's paid for.
We realize now that we thought that SBF was this absolute genius. And I mean, he was very smart. He must have been very smart to defraud people of $10 billion. You can't be stupid and defraud people of $10 billion. But I think what happened to him at the end was what led to his downfall. And if I analyze what it is that actually led to SBF's downfall, it was the constant need for attention. And I think what happened was that when he had to huddle up in his Bahamas home or apartment or wherever he landed up, and he was not getting the attention anymore of being the golden boy of crypto and stuff like that, he sought the attention. And in seeking the attention, he defied what his lawyers had told him to do, and went out there and tried to be the center of attention again, going on to multiple different YouTube streams, podcasts, having calls with people like Tiffany, who's actually here on the spaces with us. And I think that ultimately now gave the SEC a much stronger case, and the FBI a much stronger case. And to be honest, I think this guy's screwed. I mean, I saw the charge sheet today, and I saw the potential sentencing today. I think it's something like potentially 600 years.
Ran, like not only that, but when SBF came out, he inspired every other scammer to come out and start getting all aggressive on Twitter, start coming out and not apologizing to their creditors and people that have made had massive financial losses as a result of their actions. As soon as SBF came out, every other scammer was like, "Oh, it's SBF's fault." SBF, look at me, I'm not as bad as SBF. Let's all take the attention off me and everything that I've done and start looking at SBF and FTX. So he actually inspired, the group of scammers behind him to come out and follow his lead. Now, today, I don't think they're going to be doing what they were doing a couple of days ago.
I mean, what I fail to understand is how the fuck do you manage to get like such a harsh treatment after paying both sides of the political party? I mean, like, isn't that weird?
Let me say this, that one of the things that he's actually been caught on, as you saw from the New York Attorney General, one of the things that he's actually been caught on is actually illegal campaign donations. I mean, that's. I didn't imagine that they would put a crime like that, and I think that that's sending a very strong message to political candidates that you need to be asking questions about where your campaign money is coming from, and who's trying to buy you, and why they're trying to buy you. And I think that what we haven't noticed here is that there's a massive can of worms that has just been opened with that charge. A massive can of worms that has been opened with that charge.
Yeah, and did you notice how some people were like, there's billions of dollars missing, and they were thinking about, well, were the correct tax forms filed? They were trying to get IRS on the creditor list, and there was quite a lot of attention on getting all the data. You know, we're talking about creditors have lost billions of dollars. It looks like, I mean, who knows what the assets will be in the end? We don't even know. And yet the IRS is trying to get their, join the creditor list amongst all these victims.
Join. I think the IRS want to be top of the creditors list as usual. First pay the taxes, and then all the poor depositors who got defrauded can have their money back. But rest assured, like every liquidation in the world, the government and the revenue services stand ahead of all the other creditors.
Yeah, well, let's see what real investor protections look like, because on BlockFi, the fourth largest creditor is the SEC. If the SEC's mission is to protect investors, then one of the best ways to protect investors in the BlockFi case is give up their credit.
So we just had some more news, and I think it's coming out of Bahamas. They are saying that Bankman-Fried is willing to accept house arrest if he's granted bail. So I think he's really, really, really fighting for bail now. And I mean,
and whose money is he paying with?
Well, he's got $100,000. Don't forget that, Simon. He has told us that he's got $100,000.
Yeah.
Wait, I thought some of it was being used with the Binance fund. Was I misinformed?
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. I think this.
So he's going to be sat in his creditor bought house, using creditor funds in order to pay for his bail, for house arrest, to pay for a lawyer with creditors' money, while the Department of Justice used creditors' money in the Chapter 11 case in order to pay for the examination, so that creditors essentially get rinsed for nothing in the end.
I'm willing to put any money in the world that you want, that it will be discovered in time that SBF has a massive crypto stash, which he's using to fund his expenses, which he's using to pay for his legal fees, maybe directly, maybe indirectly. I'm willing to do that.
Yeah, but Ran, we're all going to be tracking that on the blockchain. That's the beauty of this thing. So, take the centralized company out of the middle to try and do law enforcement's job, and you're left with, wherever he's going to create those immutable records on the blockchain that are going to be traced, and we're going to be, citizen journalism on Twitter Spaces, and then law enforcement are going to react.
Sure. Yeah. Look, I think that SBF. On the one hand, I think this is the end of the story for a long time. So I think now that he's not speaking anymore, and now that he's not in the public eye anymore, I think now what's going to happen is SBF's going to disappear. And while everybody does a very, very, very thorough investigation that will eventually land up in a court of law, and I think that it's going to be a long time before we actually hear the full story, because I think what the prosecutors are going to do is they're going to take their time in making sure they've got a bulletproof investigation before this thing actually goes to trial. And I think if you look at Elizabeth Holmes, you look at that case, how long did that take to trial her? I mean, or to from beginning to end, a couple of years.
Yeah, and for those that were giving like Tiffany shit for trying to be nice to SBF so that she could actually get 2 calls, I hope we appreciate that now we actually got those calls and they were used in Congress, and now she's in a position where she can say what she really believes. But you got a lot of shit for that, because everyone was saying that you were paid off by SBF and stuff like that.
I did, and I was intentionally trying to be nice to get 2 phone calls. And to be honest, now that he's in jail, I still have some parts that I haven't released yet, so I'm toying with what to do with those. But yeah. Anyway.
Tiff.
Release them.
If you're going to release them, maybe this time you can release it with us and not with CoffeeZilla.
I don't know. I might just put it on my own channel. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. I haven't really slept much today, and all this happened. So I'm like flying today and everything. So I'll deal with that when I get home.
Did you hear your name called out live in Congress, or did you hear after?
I heard my name and I was like, wait, what? But I saw your post. I thought that was hilarious. Thanks, Simon.
I'm just getting some more stuff from Bankman-Fried, and I guess this is from the court proceedings in the Bahamas. It says Bankman-Fried's mother audibly laughed several times when her son was referred to as a fugitive, and his father occasionally put his fingers in his ears as if to drown out the sound of the proceedings. So that's the first part that we've got here. The next part that I've got here is that SBF suffered from depression, insomnia, and ADD for over a decade, according to his attorney. And on those grounds, they're asking for him to be released on bail because he suffers from depression, insomnia, and ADD.
So he requested Adderall as his prescription drug, probably.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I wonder if he could get a few doses so that I could maybe try some.
Are we going to be too surprised if they try to get him to plead insanity at some point?
Yeah, I mean, insanity is something you can plead at. You can.
Well,
they
did confirm. John Ray did confirm today that his parents were being paid from the estate. So there is.
Yeah,
they were actually getting paid.
It did occur to me that no attorney in the world no counsel in the world would advise him to go on and doing all these interviews that he did. I think that probably he resigned himself to the idea that he's going to have a jury trial at some point, and so I think what he was doing is trying to blanket as much like positive like sentiment to as many people as possible about this, or at least just sort of like get it sort of out of the way, right? Rip the Band-Aid off, so that way when he was inevitably on a standing trial, he would maybe have some sort of empathy or better chance. I think it was clear that his girlfriend was going to be working with the feds.
So you think? I mean, it seems to me that Caroline has taken some kind of cooperative witness approach. Obviously, nothing's been confirmed. This is just speculation on my side. She was spotted in New York not so long ago. We know that she's taken very strong legal counsel. I don't know, to see her walking around New York carefree, and then to have the New York Attorney General or the Attorney General of Southern State of New York charging, I don't know, it just feels like she probably turned against him. I wonder if
you remember, Ran, that was the first question Kim asked on that interview, wasn't it? Do you remember?
Yes. Yeah.
I pinned up my sort of response to that.
He was most offended by.
Yeah, I pinned up my response to what I saw in that picture.
Tell us what it is, sir. I mean, actually.
Well, just the fact that there's this guy that was standing awkwardly close to her with a hat, big scarf, big winter jacket. It's clearly very cold, and he's wearing shorts and sneakers and standing awkwardly close to her and looking at her and not the barista. It just seemed to me that 6 blocks from the FBI field office or whatever, that she probably cooperating. Like as you said, why else is she just walking around, Manhattan, just taking all of that risk if there wasn't a reason? And I think that reason is probably she's cooperating.
Wow. I wonder how big her involvement actually was. And then there are a couple of other people that I'm really wondering about. I'm wondering about Gary Tan, we've all heard about. And I wonder, I think the New York Attorney, the FBI and the Attorney General all said that this is not the end and that there's a lot more. They imply that there's a lot more coming.
Yeah, do you think that was other companies or other people within this group?
I think it sounded to me like it was other companies in this group. I think it was other companies in this group. I don't think it was other companies yet. But rest assured,
it could be both, but obviously, like, there's other people that knew something. There's no way that one single person was able to orchestrate all of this. Like on the Alameda side, they have to go through all of them. They have to go, the people who quit, who resigned over the last 6 months as well. They have to go back there. I'm sure there's a lot of dirt they have on people now.
I wonder a lot of people have fudded and said that there have been multiple people that have left Binance recently. I've had some DMs in that regard. I don't really respond to DMs. I said to the guy, look, unless you can actually give me names of people that have resigned and I can go and verify the names of people that have resigned, I'm not going to announce it. But I'd be very keen to know if anybody here in the listeners or anybody else has actual factual information in that regard. Because I think that is always a real sign of something that's wrong, is when your top people leave. And we should have seen it, when I think the former FTX CEO, USA CEO, he left. You had Sam Travuco, he left suddenly, said that he bought a boat and he doesn't know what the future holds, and he left. I wonder if he's next. I wonder if he's another guy that's about to get arrested. I'd be very surprised if he wasn't.
Yeah, I do believe that they're going to use this opportunity to come off to Binance. They're going to try and open up the books on this and issue some subpoenas, and they're definitely going to use this opportunity because they want the institutions that are most controls within their borders.
But there's also no way someone didn't, spill the beans on them, whether that's Caroline or Sam, that they knew they were committing fraud from 2019. There's no empirical evidence after that they were. So they had to have some sort of insider to get that information.
Yeah, it makes sense that insider could have been Caroline. I mean, again, this is all speculation. We don't really have facts. I think what we'll see.
Well, no, you would have known. I mean, John Ray, if he had access to the AWS account, he would know probably at this stage when, assets and liabilities didn't match and when they were just spending, because they said the spending spree started in 2019, right?
That's when they opened.
May 2019. They said from as early as May 2019 they were deliberately running a fraud. From as early as May 2019.
Yeah. John Ray is a proper professional. I was he handled it with excellence. I thought, just said the right thing. Didn't get too speculative. Like he seems like the right person for the job. Let's just hope that they hire the right consultants and stuff to do the bit that they can't, because they were very paper heavy, saying that, because there's nothing wrong with Slack documentation and not having paperless documents for your board meetings and stuff like that. I did get the sense that they were thinking that governance means that you have a physical paper trail, but you can definitely. Oh, who's that?
Sorry, my little 3-year-old has just walked in. I don't know why he's not in bed. It is 10 o'clock, but he just walked in here. Sorry about that. Just to your point, I was super impressed with John Ray and how much of a grasp he had on the business in such a short period of time, and how much he's been able to uncover in such a short period of time.
And some people kept thinking that he was around all along, and what really surprised me, the sheer lack of knowledge of some of those people, the people that were asking questions, they didn't even grasp that he just came in and he's only been there for 4 weeks. They were asking him questions like he was there for months or something.
That's unfortunately the level of the US, the US politicians that are appointed. It's not the first time I must say, I moved to the United States a while back. And I remember when I arrived there, I'd been there for some time, and they had the hearings with David Marcus from Facebook. And at the time, they were going to launch Libra. I don't know if you remember that. And I was listening to the line of questions that the guys were asking, and I was like, this is an absolute joke. I cannot believe it. These are the best people that are elected, and that these people are paid to sit there and ask questions. I mean, you know, and one of the questions, and I don't remember who asked this, but it was one of the usual suspects. But it was like, how many black people are employed by Libra in building this global currency? I'm like,
yeah, they've all got some complete opposite agenda.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
there was one guy
there
that
with
tried
the
to said,
agenda.
"Will you join my motion to recall it creepy currency?" I think. But how many of them asked the same question again and again and again? Like, it's driving me nuts. Like, he literally was just. How many times did he have to explain like the same thing?
You know,
No,
the one
Ren is
thing
right
that
though.
I
Like
want.
they're always like this. Like I've seen them every time Powell goes up in front of committee, and I watch these hours of, of footage. It's so painful, like the lack of education. But I agree with you, Ran. Like John Ray, like he's kicking ass. Who should we get him on the Netflix series? I feel like he deserves like a Clooney, maybe George Clooney or something. He deserves somebody good.
Look, we reached out to him. We reached out to him to give us an interview. I hope that he actually will give us an interview. Just in terms of, we said, look, we have a lot of people in our community that had money on FTX, and we would love to hear this. The one question that wasn't asked, and I really wanted someone to ask him, and they didn't ask it, is, what was the logic in switching off the exchange? If you know, like, to me, if you're in chapter 11, the one thing that you want to do is you want to try and keep the business going if you can, because there could be a lot of enterprise value. And the one thing that he did was he shut down the exchange. And I'm wondering whether he shut down the exchange because of security breaches, because of liquidity problems. Like, maybe
Well,
the
it was
idea
a
is,
bank
hey,
run. There was not enough funds. You've got to shut it down.
but he has over $1 billion.
Yeah, but that was in the bank. Like, you can't just keep going until, because at the end of the day, you got to claw all that back if you're going to do the clawbacks, and so you want to remain as much in the estate for creditors as possible. You don't want to just leave it to the point where it's absolutely zero, and then everyone got 100% of their. That's the reason why they introduce clawbacks, because some people get 100% of their money and others get zero. So you got to shut it as fast as possible to keep it, because the bankruptcy process is about trying to get to as an equitable distribution for those in similar classes and similar situations.
Hey, Rand, how are you? Thank you so much for allowing me on stage. I just wanted to comment on one thing, and then I'll drop back down to the audience. I've been following this case here on Twitter Spaces, the New York Times episode. I feel like he is purposely doing these live interviews and putting on an act of making pretend that he has ADD, making pretend that he's bipolar, making pretend that he has depression. Because when people ask him, is your lawyers okay with you being interviewed? And he's like, no, but I'm doing it anyway. It's really just a setup to make pretend that he's got like mental health issues to the public. So he's trying to draw an illusion that he's mentally not well, because he's going to use that in court, I believe. And that's why he went on tour, because he wants the public to think that he's mentally sick. And I think that he probably, yeah.
He was definitely out here trying to build a narrative. And the reason why you know that is, I've done this many, many times. And specifically in the days when I was at CNBC, the one thing that we learned at CNBC was media training. And media training, someone who has had good media training can very easily pick up when other people have had good media training. And what we saw with SBF was we saw something very interesting. We saw SBF disappear for a couple of days and not accept any interviews and go and be completely silent. And then all of a sudden he came out and he gave everybody in the world an interview. When I say everybody in the world, he gave the smallest YouTubers, the biggest YouTubers. He gave Mario, and with a lot of respect to Mario is a brand new news outlet with a very big audience. He gave a lot of people interviews. Now that's the first part that you learn in media training, is that once you have your narrative, You want to explode your narrative as much as possible. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that anybody who's had media training would have picked up that he kept using the same words and the same themes over and over again. And I remember when I was media trained, and I was media trained for extreme situations. And what I remember was that the best thing to do was to just keep hammering the same narrative, no matter which way the question was thrown at you. So things like, I'm sorry, I fucked up. You realize how many times did he repeat the same thing? I'm sorry, I messed up. I'm sorry, I fucked up. That's all very, very, very strategic. Driving the fact that had I remained in control, I think that I could have salvaged this. The US is still solvent. I'll give you another point that he kept reiterating and reiterating and reiterating is I don't have enough information. Now that is all for me signs of someone who was media trained for 3 or 4 days. And when I say media trained for 3 or 4 days, how the process normally works is you sit in a room and you craft your narrative first. Once you sit in a room and you craft your narrative, then what you do is you get people to ask you a lot of questions. And no matter how the question is asked, you make sure that you can bring out the narrative which you want to drive. And that's exactly what I saw with SBF. And that's, to be honest, why I actually stopped listening to the interviews, because I realized that he has just been media trained so that he can create a narrative. Now, why did he come out and speak against the advice of his lawyers? Well, I don't know if he did come out and speak against the advice of his lawyers. Maybe his lawyers realized that he was so in such a big hole that he needs to create some kind of favorable public perception and drive a narrative. Now, the last thing I want to say in this regard is that sometimes, no matter how well you are media trained, if you don't have a lot of experience in the media, which clearly SBF didn't have great experience, sometimes you just say too much or you go off narrative. And I think that those are the places that eventually he's going to be charged on. But have no doubt that when he came out, it was a dead giveaway that he came out to drive certain narratives and that he had been media trained. And it was very, very, very strategic of him to come out when he came out saying exactly what he said. There was no coincidence there, guys.
Thank you so much for allowing me to speak on that. And that's why I kind of wasn't disappointed that he wasn't there today, because I already kind of predicted what his responses were going to be, although I was kind of hoping to see him get shredded.
But we had his responses, we had his testimony, we leaked it up. Well, we didn't leak it. We spoke about this on my show today. You're welcome to go and have a look at it. We actually read out a lot of his testimony, and you can see that it's exactly the same as the narrative that he's been crafting on YouTube for the last couple of days. So, I mean,
I mean, you're totally right there. If he was able to skillfully, mince some of our words in the industry, imagine what he would have done with those Congress people.
Yeah, he would have killed him. Okay, guys, look, I'm going to let you guys continue running the spaces. I've got a 3-year-old who's just woken up and has decided that it's 10:30 at night. He wants to come and sit next to me. So I'm going to have to go and put him to bed. I'm going to leave you guys here. You guys can continue. I think Bombay or someone here is a co-host. Let's just see who else is a co-host.
No one's a co-host, I don't think.
Okay, I'm going to invite Simon. You're a co-host, and I'm going to invite Bombay. You're also a co-host. I've got to just jump and put the 3-year-old to bed. If you guys are still here later, I may join you guys. Otherwise, I'll see you guys again tomorrow. If you guys haven't watched our show today, go watch our show. I think it's the most action-packed full show with the most alpha that I've done in a long time. And also, if you're not following all the speakers here on Twitter, these speakers have been very, very, very highly curated. They didn't just appear here. So yeah, follow the speakers. I think it'll just keep you on the mission to get some alpha.
But hey, congrats everybody on Sam Bankrupt-Fried being finally incarcerated.
Scam Bankrupt.
Yeah, by the way, I'm not sure if you guys have seen that, but Wintermute is like there's net inflow from Wintermute now, and they've been depositing money into Binance, and this pretty much squashes, I would say, a portion of the FUD that was surrounding Binance right now.
Yeah, I think Binance is going to be fine personally, but obviously, I don't know, like nobody.
Should I bring someone up, see if someone wants to say something? Okay, I'm going to bring a few people up from the audience.
In the
Simon,
meantime, I
if
just have a question for
FOMC's,
Josh. Sorry,
oh yeah,
just
go
Josh.
ahead.
I'm curious because I've seen that the picture. You have Caroline, you have this guy, and you're looking at the footwork. Have you done a lot of like this pickup art, body language stuff? Because it's so detailed and specific. I'm just curious.
Yeah, I've done a lot of research into psychology and sociology, and look, I fight fraud for a living, so I live in sort of the dark spaces of the world to know as much as I can about the people that I'm trying to talk to and catch slipping, you know.
I think it's super interesting. I used to be a professional poker player, and I know some of the really top players, like the really top ones. They hired people like you, like interrogation coaches. One of them got this like Russian KGB guy, and they just go through like every facial expression and every body language, and it's super interesting.
Well, some of the trickiest top players, they won't wear big thick sunglasses. They won't wear a hoodie. They won't try to cover their tells because they're actually programming in counter like intelligence, like counter tells, right? They're specifically trying to deceive you by flashing and signaling things that if they think that you are an advanced player, that's how they're getting like edges up over the good, separating the good from the great players. It's very interesting stuff.
Absolutely. And
Simon, I wanted to ask if tomorrow, if FOMC is tomorrow at 50 bips, right, which is probably what's going to happen, and maybe 25 the next time, isn't this going to just extend the bull rally?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it will be perceived as that. No, I don't think so. Look, you have to have a recession. The economy needs a recession. You've got, real estate is unaffordable. We're at the end of a debt cycle. You can try and short-term control that, but we need massive corrections in order to unwind the damage, the irrevocable damage, I think, that's been done here. So I mean, short-term, I don't really do short-term trading and short-term price predictions, but yeah, I'm looking at the longer-term trend here. I don't think